episode 122 of the Vegan Business Tribe podcast with myself, David Purnell. And Vegan Business Tribe is here to support you and to inspire you, not just to build a vegan business, but to build a successful vegan business. And you can listen along on Spotify, on Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. Or you can also watch the video version on YouTube too. And thank you as always to our amazing sponsors who are Mindful Wealth, The Vegan Publisher, Vegan Accountants, and Mad Promotions. And before we start, I just want to say that if you love the Vegan Business Tribe podcast, well, first of all, thank you, but also make sure that you also go and check out our new sister podcast, Vegan Business Revolution, where each week I interview a different Vegan Business Tribe member about their vegan business to show the width and the breadth of the vegan business scene. And our sister series is a bit different to this podcast because each episode is only 20 minutes long and it is completely unedited for those 20 minutes. So whatever is said gets left in the podcast, meaning it's a real honest conversation about what it means to have a vegan business. Now, you can go find the audio version of Vegan Business Revolution on Spotify, Apple, or pretty much probably where you're listening to this now. If you want to watch the video episodes, then they are being streamed exclusively in our Vegan Business Academy for our VBT members to watch. Although you can get free access to each episode for 1 week after they are released, and then they're added into our permanent members collection. The other final difference to this, our main podcast, is that Vegan Business Revolution, it's being published in seasons of 10 episodes per season, and we're about halfway through season 1 right now. And we've so far featured a vegan safari company operating out of Southern Africa, an animal sanctuary that funds itself by selling gifts and merchandise, a veganic gardening coach teaching people around the world, and an NHS registered dietitian who helps people solve complex health problems through adopting a plant-based diet. And they have all opened up about their experience of running a vegan business. So please do go find the new podcast, and that is Vegan Business Revolution, and subscribe so that you never miss a single episode. And also to mention that our new podcast is also a companion to our book as well, which is available on Amazon, and that's also called Vegan Business Revolution, so very easy to remember. And that is a collection of more than 30 in-depth discussions with vegan business owners that we originally interviewed for Vegan Food and Living magazine, but they are now published for the first time all in one place in their full unabridged form. Okay, so let's get on with today's episode. And it's quite a special episode today. And I know I say that a lot, but it's a special episode because each year, I am asked by the Vegan Finance Conference, organised by the ESSEC Business School in Paris, to open their yearly seminar with my annual industry update. And for whatever reason, they keep inviting me back each year. And I've just finished the session, which was recorded. So I've jumped back on to record this introduction so that we can put this out on the podcast too, because there is just so much good stuff in this update. Now, this session, it has a lot of visuals alongside it. So if you normally listen to the podcast, you might want to go check out the video version on YouTube if you want to see the slides as well. I mean, it still makes complete sense without those slides, but I just use those to show various examples and graphs. And the theme of my update this year, it is the death of veganism. And that's a little bit clickbaity, but I stole that line from one of the newspaper headlines that I feature in the presentation. Okay, so let's go to the industry update right now. I just wanted to break off for a second to ask, are you just following this podcast without being a member of Vegan Business Tribe? Because if you are, then let me tell you, you are missing out on about 80% of everything that goes on at Vegan Business Tribe, including incredible resources and a vibrant community of like-minded vegan business owners from around the world. Because as a member of Vegan Business Tribe, you'll gain access to hundreds of hours of online courses and guides and masterclasses in our Vegan Business Academy to help you grow your vegan business. You'll also get to attend our regular online networking meetups where you can promote your business and just forge those connections with fellow vegan business owners just like you. Plus, if you need more direct advice and assistance, you can join us on a live business clinic, or you can post a question in our community hub where all our other members, plus our vegan business experts, are waiting to help you out. And the best part, it's just £18.99 a month. And at the same time, you'll also be supporting the work that we do to champion the vegan business scene around the world. And just to add that we've now also recently introduced one-to-one business coaching and mentoring with myself or one of our vegan business experts. And that's available to a select number of our members. So if you're really looking to take your vegan business to the next level, then we've got you. Don't just lurk on the sidelines. There is a whole community of vegan businesses who want to get to know you and support you. Just head to veganbusinesstribe.com, click on that big join button on the homepage, and I cannot wait to connect with you and discuss your vegan business or your next big idea. Hello, my name is David Pannell and I'm the founder of Vegan Business Tribe, which is a business support community for vegans around the world. And I'm also the host of the long-running Vegan Business Tribe podcast too. And today I'm going to be giving an update on what's been happening in the vegan sector this year. And I'm going to be asking, especially in the light of all the negative news headlines that I am sure you have all seen recently, are we really seeing the death of veganism? But before we get that, with this being the first session of today, I think it would be useful to start by defining what veganism is for anybody who might not be completely sure. So, here is a photo of two vegans, and that's myself and my wife, Lisa. And if somebody identifies as being vegan, then that person, as far as is practically possible, will exclude any products that is derived from animals or cause suffering to animals in its production. People might do this for ethical reasons, they might do it to reduce their environmental impact, they might do it for health reasons, or a combination of all three. And the obvious part of that is food. So vegans don't eat meat made from animals, don't drink milk or eat cheese and dairy that is made from animal milk, don't eat animal-produced products such as eggs or honey, and don't consume products that have any kind of animal derivatives in them. And you might think that that's fairly straightforward to do once you make that choice. But lots of animal products, they are hidden ingredients. And that's because in animal agriculture, there are a lot of what are considered to be waste products. As you can imagine, there is a lot of leftover bones, muscle, skin and hair that aren't used for food. And that means that they're really cheap for manufacturers to use in other products. So bones can be ground up and added to sugar to whiten it. Jelly babies and jelly sweets, they're mostly made from melted down animal muscles and sinew, also known as gelatine. Leftover lanolin from sheep wool, that's put into cornflakes to add vitamin D content. And even many toilet rolls, they use animal fat as the glue to hold those layered sheets together. As a vegan, it does seem that if there's a way for a manufacturer to sneak a bit of an animal into a product, then they will. But it's not just food. If somebody's following a vegan lifestyle, then that extends to the clothes they wear too. So vegans will avoid animal leather, wool and silk, and also avoid cosmetic products that have been tested on animals too. So, That's what veganism is, and it's nothing new. The Vegan Society was founded in 1944, and the first vegan commercial products, they can be tracked back to the 1800s, such as Proto's vegetable meat, created by the rather famous Kellogg family back in 1890. So, if somebody tells you that vegan meat alternatives are just a passing fad, then it's a fad that's been going on for more than 100 years. But the vegan cause still has such a long way to go. For example, this is a recent headline story from the BBC here in the UK that announced that some scientists think that animals might be conscious. Now, Charles Darwin in the 1800s wrote that there is no fundamental difference between man and animals in their ability to feel pleasure and pain, happiness and misery. But here we have scientists in 2024 wondering if animals might be conscious. And this news story alone, it shows the massive problem that we have in our relationship with animals. But it's not just people's views of animals that still has a long way to go. If you've got any interest in veganism at the moment, you will likely have seen a parade of negative stories in your newsfeed telling you that veganism is on the decline. Stories like this one in the Independent newspaper saying that veganism is over, and as a vegan myself, I couldn't be happier about it. Wow, I mean, if you were really vegan, would you have put your name to that headline? Or this story in the Telegraph, 7 reasons why 2024 was the year that Veganuary died. And if you don't know about Veganuary, then Veganuary is a worldwide movement started by Jane Land and her husband Matthew Glover 10 years ago to get people to try being vegan for January each year. And this year, Veganuary's own YouGov survey estimated that a record 25 million people worldwide gave up animal products during January in 2024. And yet, here we have a news story trying to convince the public that Veganuary has died. And we have seen some high-profile plant-based brands struggle this year, such as Meatless Farms and V-Bites, that both went into administration. But the media, it has used these examples to create a narrative that the reason that these companies went into administration is because consumers, they don't want plant-based food anymore. But what the same news outlets didn't report was that in both of these cases, Meatless Farm and V-Bites, they were bought out of administration and their products were back on the supermarket shelves a few weeks later. So this is a distinct false narrative that has been created because none of these news stories also explain that the real reason that these companies were struggling is because the wider food manufacturing industry, it is in crisis at the moment. We are seeing hundreds of food manufacturers having to close down. And especially in the UK, where Brexit, the cost of living and energy prices have forced many previously successful manufacturers into insolvency. And you will notice that no one is saying that these companies are closing down because there's a lack of demand for food. But whenever a plant-based food company struggles, then that is the narrative which is created. And one of the huge successes of the meat industry this year has been convincing the public that vegan and plant-based food is ultra-processed and unhealthy. Such as this article here saying that ultra-processed vegan food can cause heart failure. Now, I don't know about you, but as a vegan myself, I look in my kitchen and I see a lot of broccoli, sweet potatoes, always got lots of tins of beans and rice and pasta. So I'm not quite sure how this narrative has gained traction, that vegan food as a category is ultra-processed. But it has. Veganuary's exit survey this year, it showed that 80% of the people doing Veganuary were worried about vegan food being ultra-processed. And when I speak to somebody about veganism, the number one comment someone used to say was that they would go vegan, but they'd miss cheese too much. But now they say they would go vegan, but the food is too ultra-processed. And it's not just news stories. On social media, I'm sure you have seen the posts listing all the ingredients of plant-based burgers, like those you might get from Beyond Meat down one side. And then on the other side, they say that an animal meat burger has just one single ingredient: beef. Well, that's because legally, meat manufacturers are allowed to declare that beef is a single ingredient. Whereas, were you to instead list out all the things that are in a beef patty, then the list would look more like this. And that is a lot more ingredients than you're going to get in the Beyond Burger that's trying to replicate it. However, all this narrative about vegan and plant-based food, it has actually had one positive effect on the sector. My apologies. Many of the plant-based manufacturers, they have been working overtime to make their products even healthier and cleaner in response. Now, I was at the VegNet Buyers event a couple of weeks ago, and the plant-based brands that the retail buyers were getting most excited about were the companies that were healthier with less ingredients, such as our Vegan Business Tribe member Louisa, as pictured here, from Wildly Tasty, who produce a range of healthy, almost whole food, vegan frozen children meals. Supermarkets like Aldi, they have brought in new vegan product lines that are built around only having a handful of all recognisable ingredients, such as these new no chicken breasts that have got 8 or 9 very recognisable ingredients, depending on if you count water as an ingredient or not. So, if anything, this narrative about vegan food being ultra-processed and full of chemicals, it's actually done us all a favour, because brands, retailers and manufacturers, they're all responding by making their products healthier and cleaner. But as an independent observer on the sidelines, which the majority of the population are, seeing all these negative headlines, it would be easy to be convinced that veganism is on the way out. So, let's look at some other news headlines instead. Such as this one in The Guardian, announcing that meat consumption in the UK is at the lowest levels since records began. And when you see statistics like this, you start to see where all the negative stories are coming from. It's the meat and dairy industries fighting back, using their huge lobbying power and budgets to try and dissuade more of their customers from ditching their products as their market share shrinks. And we're seeing similar data in other European countries too. Consumption of what they call red meat, that has fallen by 26% in the average household since 2012, with a 14% decrease in the amount of all meat eaten overall. Now, this isn't just consumers making an ethical or environmental decision. It's been driven a lot by the cost of living crisis too. Animal meat is a really expensive way to create calories and protein. Even with huge subsidies, the cost of meat is still going up faster than plant-based. And figures from the Office of National Statistics, they show that the highest 10% of earners, they're eating 10% less meat a week than a decade ago, while the poorest 10%, they're eating 19% less. And that's showing that people's budgets being squeezed, that's played a big part in the decline of animal meat consumption. But it's not just the monetary cost of eating meat that is driving this change in consumer behaviour. A study published by Oxford University, it found that eating a vegan diet, that resulted in a 75% reduction in emissions and water pollution, and the general public, they are becoming a lot more aware of the environmental cost of eating meat. And proof that this awareness is making it through to everyday customers. It's shown in this climate and sustainability survey of 19,000 consumers carried out by Boston Consulting Group about how willing they were to adopt sustainable behaviours. And this line that I've highlighted in the middle of a chart here, that shows that food and changing what they eat, that was the number one area that people feel they are most able to change their behaviour to be more sustainable. The figure, if you can't see it on the screen there, is 63% of respondents thought that they could adapt to buying different food, compared to the 39% who said they would be willing to change their driving habits, for example. And I just want to add that I stole this slide from Indy Cower from Plant Futures after being at one of her amazing presentations a couple of weeks ago. And I know that Indy is due to be speaking later in the day. But if you really want to know the statistics around changing consumer behaviour, make sure that you stay for Indy's session, because Plant Futures, they're probably doing more work than any other organisation in this area at the moment. Okay, so we can see that the message about environmental impact of animal meat and dairy, that has been a huge driver. And we're seeing this in the sales figure too. A report by Straits Research, it showed that the UK vegan food market has grown by 9.588%, with 40% of consumers now saying that they actively want more plant-based alternatives to meat and dairy. And although this growth comes from environmental concerns, it's also been driven by health concerns too. We are facing an obesity pandemic. The World Health Organization has published data showing that almost 60% of Europeans are overweight, including a third of all children. And that obesity is one of the leading causes of death and disability in the European region. And there is a lot of evidence to show that consumers are moving to eating more plant-based as a way to lose weight. So we know that people are continuing to move to a plant-based diet for a whole range of reasons, including the cost, the environment, and their health. But also increasingly, we're seeing concerns about animal welfare starting to impact on the general public too. And I mentioned earlier the Veganuary campaign, and in their exit survey, they asked those who said that they were going to stay vegan after doing Veganuary, what influenced that decision? And the number one answer at 24% was that that person learned more about veganism. And by this, they meant that they specifically learned more about the ethics of veganism. Do you want to speak at more events? Do you want to get invited onto podcasts like this one? Well, it's far easier to do that if you can say that you have written a book. So let me tell you about the Vegan Publisher. Their founder, Mitali, she is a best-selling business author herself. And Mitali and her team, they will lead you through that entire process of becoming a published author, transforming you into the thought leader of your industry. And writing a book, it isn't just a great marketing activity to get you more clients. Trust me, being a published author, it will open up doors to opportunities that you never even knew existed. So, even if you think you don't have the time to write a book, or even if you don't know what you might write a book about, go take a look at theveganpublisher.com to find out more. If you are a UK vegan business, wouldn't it be better to have an accountant that shares your ethics? Well, vegan accountants have got over 30 years of experience, and they're a vegan founded company. And just to add, they're also our accountants at Vegan Business Tribe because they just get us. They understand why we do what we do, and they make sure that we're doing it in the most tax efficient way possible. Keith and his team, they've been massive supporters of our mission at Vegan Business Tribe. So if you are an established UK business with a growth mindset and you want an accountant that is going to help you grow and shares your mission as well as saves you tax, then just go to veganaccountants.co.uk to find out more. Did you know that in the UK alone there is currently around £3 trillion invested in pensions? And much of that money, it's helping to fund harmful industries like tobacco, fossil fuels, gambling and animal agriculture. So if instead you want to put your money where your heart is, then Jay Street is the founder of Mindful Wealth, our UK-based independent and vegan financial advisor here at Vegan Business Tribe. And because they are truly independent, they're not restricted to any specific investment range, so they can find the best option that works for you both financially and ethically. Although do note that the value of your investments, it can go down as well as up. But you don't need to have a lot of money invested to make a difference. If you want to talk about your financial planning, whether you're just starting your journey or you need a little guidance on how to create and maintain good habits, then book a free discovery call with Jay by heading to mindfulwealth.uk. If you are looking to get your business in the news or on the radio or interviewed on TV, then no one's going to get your company noticed like Karen Ridgers and her team at Mad Promotions. And Karen, she's been at the forefront of the vegan media scene for the last 20 years. And Mad Promotions, they're also our media partners at Vegan Business Tribe. So if you've read about us in plant-based news or in Vegconomist, then that's probably because Karen got that story there. So if you are an ethical company or entrepreneur that wants more media coverage, and if you're a company that is looking to make a difference, then that's literally what Mad Promotions stands for. Karen, she's worked with Veganuary, VegFest and all the other big names. So go find out more at mad-promotions.com. And this is where the vegan movement is starting to gain traction now. If somebody moves to a plant-based diet just for health or for their concerns about the environment, then there is a high chance that with all the industry and societal pressure that they're going to face, then at some point they're going to return to consuming animal products in the future. However, once somebody makes the ethical connection, they are far more likely to stay vegan. And we can see this in the anecdotal data too that Veganuary collect about the biggest things that people learned while doing the Veganuary challenge. Things like people think that cows just make milk. Now, like all mammals, cows only make milk because they have just become mothers. And the milk that they make can only be sold if that baby cow is taken out of the picture. And most people don't realise this. And once people learn it as adults, they are shocked. And in the same way, most people think that when they see lambs playing in a field that they're going to grow up to become adult sheep, not realising that they're going to be killed as young as 10 weeks old. And another perhaps shocking statistic from Veganuary is the gender data. So there is an imbalance here. 85% of the people who took part in Veganuary this year were female. 85%. It is not commented on nearly enough that veganism is a female-led movement, and we have to acknowledge that veganism has a real masculinity problem that needs to be overcome. In fact, last year, the Vegan Society, they released a research paper suggesting that the overwhelming majority of vegans in the UK and the US are women. And the main barriers stopping men going vegan, they include things like social stigma, ridicule from friends and family, and disinformation about nutrition. But even with half a population seemingly resistant, people are not just buying more plant-based food, more people are actively turning vegan too. According to research from Finder.com into UK diet trends, they estimated 1 million new people turned vegan in the UK in the last 12 months. Generation Z and millennials, they've got the highest meat-free percentages, but we're seeing similar trends with young people in other European countries too. So in Berlin, Germany, for example, a report showed that almost half of all children in the city of Berlin don't eat animal meat anymore. And when you look at the figures countrywide for Germany, it was estimated that 33% of German children aged 4 to 14 consume no or almost no animal meat. So, for those of us waiting for the vegan revolution, it's coming. We just need to wait for a generation. So, all of this, it is great news. But in that case, why are some of the most high-profile vegan food companies struggling if the popularity of plant-based eating is continuing to rise? Well, it comes down to another significant shift in consumer behaviour. So I mentioned I was at the Veganuary conference last month, and the lady in this photo, the lady in blue, she is Katie Cross, a senior buyer at Ocado supermarket. And Katie, she explained that all consumers are buying less finished food products and instead have moved to buying ingredients. Following the pandemic, more of us are now cooking food at home. So instead of looking to buy a packaged pizza or a burger as the main part of a meal, we are instead buying ingredients from which we can make our own meals from, such as broccoli, jackfruit, sweet potatoes, and even tofu and tempeh. And again, this is because of a desire to eat healthier, but it's also a way to save money too. So, we're also seeing consumers move to buying supermarket own label products that are usually cheaper instead of branded ones. And we see this especially returning to Veganuary's exit survey data. When people were asked which brands they had bought during January while they were doing the Veganuary challenge, supermarket own brand, that came number 1 or 2 in almost every category. In meat alternatives, supermarket own brand came above any one brand. And Alpro and Oatly, they're the only 2 brands to come just ahead of supermarket own brand in milk and dairy. And this is why so many vegan brands have struggled this year. It's not that the demand for plant-based has gone, it has just moved to cheaper options. Companies like Beyond Meat, they launched at a time when there was very little competition, so the market, it could hold a premium. For example, there was pretty much no supermarket own label vegan food 5 years ago. But today, convincing a consumer to buy a branded vegan burger for £2 a patty when you can buy a multi-pack of a very good supermarket own brand for 28 pence a burger, that's very difficult. Okay, so let's finish off this update by quickly looking ahead at what we can expect to see next in the vegan sector. So first, just leaving this slide on show just to emphasize this, it will continue to be incredibly hard for new plant-based foods to get any initial investment. As I said, when companies like Beyond Meat and Oatly IPO'd, it was a very different sector. A lot of investors, they jumped on the plant-based bandwagon, thinking that everybody would be the next Beyond Meat or Oatly, and they got their fingers burnt, meaning that companies, they will need to first prove their product and marketplace before investors will stump up the cash. And I'm hearing this from both sides at the moment, both from investors and from plant-based startups who are really struggling to raise any kind of money right now. But there's also some other interesting developments away from food too. And I've talked a lot about the negative media and the disinformation around vegan products today. But there are some people trying to do something about that. Just like every other sector, artificial intelligence, or AI, is going to play a big part in the vegan and plant-based industry over the next few years. New not-for-profit organisations such as Open Pause, which you can see here, which was launched this year by our Vegan Business Tribe member, Sam Tucker, they've been created to leverage the power of artificial intelligence to help promote veganism and to try and combat online disinformation. And celebrities are also still having a huge impact on consumers being willing to try plant-based. Do we have any Swifties in the room? Well, Taylor Swift. She has been promoting a number of plant-based alternatives on her world tour, partnering with different plant-based manufacturers in different cities to provide their products at her shows. And another indicator that we're not facing the death of veganism just yet is that we're still seeing headline food companies such as McDonald's innovating with new plant-based offerings to meet consumer demand, such as the launch of this new vegan ice cream, which has been trialled in 52 locations in the UK, just in time for what we call summer. Okay. But I want to finish this update by just coming back to a topic that I spoke about in detail in last year's industry update, and that is cultured meat and precision fermented dairy. And if you haven't heard about these terms before, then cultured, also known as lab-grown meat, and precision fermented dairy, they are manufacturing processes that are able to create real animal meat and real cow milk without using animals. If adopted into the mainstream, they'll give us an animal meat and dairy-free world, in a single generation. No need to change the end product. No need to convince consumers to change their behaviour or to give up cheese. And you can see on this promotion here, these processes, they are already being marketed as cruelty-free and better for the environment. In an indication that these processes are gaining momentum, Danone, France's largest dairy company, they've launched a new centre to develop precision fermentation milk production, investing €16 million to create a demonstration scale production line. And the US Department of Defense, they are currently asking for proposals to develop real-world applications for cultured or lab-grown animal meat to address global climate change, offering grants of up to $2 million to companies and organisations. And then, as a final comment on the sector at the moment, I'm going to leave you with this new brand that's just launched in the UK supermarkets called Smug Dairy. And I don't know if you've seen it before, but Smug, they have just launched this new range of blended dairy products, blending cow milk and oat milk together to give the consumer what they call the goodness of both plants and dairy. And on the face value, some people might think that this is a great idea, a way to reduce people's consumption of dairy by giving them products that are a mix of both. A gateway to plant-based, you might think. Well, don't be fooled. Smug is a new brand from Kerry Dairy, one of Europe's largest dairy companies. And don't think for a minute that a company like Kerry are going to launch a product that will encourage consumers away from their core products. This is still cow's milk. In fact, the ingredients show that it's 75% cow's milk with added oats, but they are attempting to package their product within a brand that will be appealing to consumers who are turning away from dairy. And we're going to see more of this. We're going to see more meat and dairy companies trying to confuse customers at the point of purchase. Already, many animal dairy companies have adopted plant-based iconography and messages on their products, which can only be an attempt to confuse that casual plant-based consumer. So, the next time you pick up a product and it's got a green V on it or a leaf symbol, just look a little bit closer to make sure it actually is a plant-based product and not an attempt to trick you into thinking that it is. Okay, so that's me done. But if you want more great insight and content like this, then go find the Vegan Business Tribe podcast, and that's got over 120 episodes now, and you can find that on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your pods. Or you can also watch the video version on YouTube too. And if you do have a vegan business or you're thinking about starting one, then go check out our business community for vegans over at veganbusinesstribe.com, where we have hundreds of hours of masterclasses, guides, and online courses in our Vegan Business Academy, as well as the most amazing and supportive business community that you will ever find. So I think I'm just about up to time there, but thank you for your time. And we're back now on the podcast, and thank you very much for your time too. Now, my update, it was a little bit different this year because we are facing a huge challenge with misinformation in the media at the moment, like we have never seen before in the vegan sector. The meat and dairy industry, they wish we were seeing the death of veganism, but that couldn't be anywhere further from the truth that hopefully you've just learned. But it also means that we have to come together too as an industry and as a community. So if you have enjoyed this session today and you found it useful, then please do consider joining us over on veganbusinesstribe.com. It is only £18.99 a month, and that's what funds all the amazing work that we do to support vegan businesses around the world. And not just supporting our members, but to give people access to the kinds of information that you've just watched or listened to today. And it's also where you're going to get a lot of support with your business too. So thank you so much for joining me today. Do also go check out our new sister podcast, Vegan Business Revolution, and I'll see you on the next one.